all right, and thank you for joining us again here at CAN TV on this wonderful Tuesday. This is the Shy Ride Show brought to you by the Englewood Enterprise Gallery, and I am your host, Mr. Medina. Once again, we are the Englewood Enterprise Gallery, located at our new location of 1200 West 35th Street. That's 1200 West 35th Street. You can always feel free to give us a call if you like at 773-719-9848. And you can check out our website at EnglewoodEnterpriseGallery.com. That's EnglewoodEnterpriseGallery.com. Man, it's such a pleasure being back here, and I'd like to introduce you to my wonderful guest. We always love to have him out whenever we get the opportunity. Dr. Jihad Muhammed. How you doing, Dr. Muhammed?
Yes.
Very good friend of mine, very special gentleman to myself as well as to the rest of us, especially once you get a chance to find out all the awesome and wonderful things that Dr. Muhammed does. Before I get to that, just to tell you a little bit about us at the Englewood Enterprise Gallery. We are an art gallery, and we also deal in outreach and youth mentorship, public art projects, and different types of things where we promote creativity and imagery in the community. Speaking of that, matter of fact, let me just pull up a little video clip of some of the latest stuff that we have been doing, and maybe it's something you might be interested in and want to get involved with. Take a look at it and feel free to call in and let me know what you think. All right. Yes, I like playing that little video. You know, all the children having a good time doing what they do. The Englewood Enterprise Gallery, sewing programs, art programs, STEM-related programs, the Kid Biz Camp. We do all types of stuff, that promote creativity, promote a different perspective in dealing with some of the issues that we have in the community, using creativity. Plus, I'm a personal believer of the idea that even technology comes out of creativity and imagery. We have to be creative and imagine things that don't exist so that we can design them for the future. All right. So, Dr. Muhammed.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad you made it out. It's always a pleasure. Dr. Muhammed, a good friend of mine, he is also a premier forensics anthropologist. All right, a forensics anthropologist. I know y'all don't see one of those too often on CAN TV channel 21, but you got one right here today. He's also an archaeologist, okay, and he is one of the forerunners who led the search, in the search for the remains of Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable. A lot of people might not even know who that is, but for those of you who don't know, Jean-Baptiste du Sable is the father and founder of this great city, Chicago, Illinois. And Dr. Muhammed, you're currently engaged, as always you have been for a long time, in the preservation of burial grounds and remains. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, well, without further ado, maybe you can tell me all about that and what exactly is involved with forensics anthropology and burial remains.
Yes. Greetings, everyone out there in television land. As my great brother have mentioned, the fact that when I come into the city, I'm always looking, and I'm very proud to come over and spend some time with you.
Yes, sir.
So I'm in the city for a short time, but in this time, I think we're going to be able to meet.
Yes.
But what is happening now with the forensic anthropology and archaeology is that it matters archaeology, it matters to black people in terms of preserving our history, rewriting our history, rediscovering that history, uncovering that history, and rewriting it, as I said.
Yes.
So that's what we do.
Yes.
And we have focused mostly on the Delta region. The Delta region, all the way from the Gulf of Mexico to Cairo, Illinois, is my territory that I work. And so what we try to do there is to identify all of those diaspora settlements that from the 1700s all the way through the Great Migration.
1700s.
Right.
Wow.
So we're back to 1720.
Okay.
When we first began to see the population of blacks coming up that Mississippi River with the French, bringing enslaved people into Missouri,
Yes.
Illinois, and beyond into Canada. So that is the work that we do, and for many of our people who settled in these areas, they worked, they died, and they were buried. And so many of those burial sites have been forgotten, lost, and my job and the Institute, the African Scientific Research Institute, is to find these, uncover them, and to activate them into an economic engine for the
Yes.
community.
Yes.
So we look at tourism a little bit different because we look at it from a black perspective, and that not only do we invite people, because tourism really is an entertainment component. And so if you got a good show, then people will come. And so what we try to do is dig deep into our history, that is not known. Our job is to make it known for generations to come. And so where do you start? You start with the burial ground. You start with anthropology. You start with archaeology. And that allows us now to look into the culture of a people, but not only look into the culture of that person, but to identify them. So we are able now to add names to families within those tombs.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
We get the manifesto, and we look at the manifesto of slaves that was coming in and what plantation they may have gone to. There was many that were never on plantation. They were called free men of color. And so that's a very important component to the work that we are doing. But right now, we are worked in Promised Land, Louisiana,
Okay.
which is community in St. Martin Parish,
Yes.
mostly Haitian Creole
Okay.
descent.
Okay.
And because of the Haitian connection to
Yes.
the Mississippi River,
Yes.
we are now in a small community in upper Louisiana, which would be the upper part of the Delta region, consists of Cairo, Illinois, Saxton, Missouri, Hayti, Missouri,
Okay.
and Hayti is where I am located now.
Okay.
So-
Hayti. That sounds a lot like Haiti. Is there any relationship? Even though
There
two
is a
different places?
relationship, yeah, because according to the historic research that we have done, that was the original name of Haiti.
Okay.
And so they brought so many blacks into that region in the boot heel of Missouri until this town was noted to be Hayti.
Okay.
And there's still some controversies in terms of other people trying to figure out where the name come from. Well, we're here to tell them today that the name come because so many blacks came in there with the French, and they call it Little Haiti.
So this was actually, so they came with the French. This would be before the founding of what we know as America?
Well, 1720, 1740,
Okay.
2 waves of French people coming through, families coming through with slaves, and then you had the slave traders
Okay.
that was bringing them in by the hundreds.
Okay.
And why was they bringing them in? To clear the land. Most of that farmland you see throughout this country was cleared by Africans. Many of them was out of the Haitian region.
Yes. Let me ask you something else, Doc, because I heard you mention a couple things, if you don't mind elaborating on. You mentioned diaspora.
Yes.
All right. And I know I've heard that before related to different peoples. What exactly is a diaspora?
Well, the diaspora is is a place where we can identify that a movement of people coming through from certain other places.
Yes.
And so we call them diaspora because it relates to the slave trade in Africa.
Yes.
And coming out of Africa into North America. And so the diaspora is these communities, these settlements. And we identify them as black towns.
Okay.
Okay? But it's in the diaspora component of the work that we are doing.
Okay. Okay. And then you also mentioned, let me see, what was that? You mentioned Haiti. The work in Promised Land.
Well, the work in Promised Land, of course, the name itself is somewhat attractive to, visitors and things. So they want to know where the name come from.
Yes.
Well, after Reconstruction, and you had in rural areas where we had sharecroppers. Sharecroppers was able to work after slavery, okay, and make a little money, and they were able to purchase land. And so a group blacks of Haitian descent in Promised Land were able to, during that time, the whole movement now was to put land back into production. Plantations was, resolving themselves, and so they were able to sell portions of land off to some of the people who had money, okay,
Yes.
to purchase land. And so they bought this plot of land and began to build on it in terms of a community, and they named it Promised Land.
Okay.
And so that's where I started this work at in Promised Land.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now I know that. Creole. We were talking about Creole. You mentioned that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have a lot of different views on what Creole is and what does it mean, and does it mean the same thing to different people. Maybe you can help us clarify that, Doc.
Yeah. Well, Creole, by its definition, means that you had to be from the seed of a Frenchman with an African woman.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is who we refer to as Creoles, okay? But the thing is, if you go to Louisiana, you may see Creoles that is much more lighter skin, and then they have brothers and sisters that is very dark skinned. All right. To some Europeans, they think Creole have to be that is truly mixed with white blood. But if you come out of a family of someone who may have the traits of that, doesn't negate that you are not a Creole. Okay. So you have many blacks down there, very dark complected. They say, "I'm Creole."
Yes.
Right.
Yes. That's interesting. That's another interesting thing, because just in my little study of history, what I began to notice back during the time of the Native Americans and different peoples, they had different names for the offspring between different races. Like you said, a French man and an African woman, or a Frenchman and a Native American woman, two different races or classifications, how they want to break everybody down in order to divide them in a sense.
Absolutely. That was the whole purpose of all of that. Okay.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Now, we were talking, and you mentioned to me, well, actually, let me do this first, because I think this is going to be another lengthy one.
Okay.
We are the Englewood Enterprise Gallery, located at 1200 West 35th Street. Our website is englewood-enterprisegallery.com. That's englewood-enterprisegallery.com. All right. I just want to get that public service announcement out the way. We were talking, and you were telling me about some African American cattle ranchers, black cattle ranchers, and they had been cattle ranching for 150 years in their family. Can you tell me more about that and where they're from?
Agriculture has been a
Oh, I'm sorry, Doc. It looks like we got a call on the line.
Okay.
All right, hold on 1 minute. Oh, we got a call on the line? I think we do. Is that a caller?
Yes, thank you for taking my call. And I wanted to make the point that for some people who don't particularly understand a great deal about history or haven't chosen to study it, they need to be made aware of the difference in terms of the cultures that dominated different regions of what we call the United States at one point. So the idea of color consciousness in the British colonies, which of course came to the entire United States now, was different than what used to be the French colonies. So when we talk about phrases such as Creole and whatnot, this is out of the French tradition and identification about how different groups are identified. The English version of this was non-existent, so that you didn't have anything like a Creole person in Maryland or Massachusetts or Pennsylvania. But where the French were dominant, which is Louisiana and that part of the country, the part that we acquired through the Louisiana Purchase, they were people who were classified as Creole and other. So that's where we get these things that don't exist in other parts of the country because, again, that was French and not English, where most of America was dominated by the English settlers.
Interesting. That's very interesting. So if there were no Frenchmen, then they couldn't have no Creoles out on the East Coast, huh?
Well, yes, one would argue that if Louisiana and the rest of that region were originally conquered by or settled by the British, you never would have had anything like a Creole or mixed race person. You simply would have had white, and everyone else who's not entirely white would be called black. But the French, who always had a nuance because they weren't like the British in many ways, had saw that nuance. So you could say we had full French, you were half French, you were entirely African, you were of other. So they had various categories that the British never had. So that's part of something people need to understand.
Interesting. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's good information. You know, it's good that we have a quest to try to define things, you know, because it's important to be able to kind of call things as you see them or give them a symbolic name and things like that. And sometimes I wonder if our quest to define things brings things together or does it separate? What do you think, Doc?
Well, I think it's important that we begin to rethink from a black perspective on all of this. And so that's one of the things that I very, push in terms of the young men and women that comes into our sphere,
Yes.
is that we have to now begin to think from original black thought.
Yes.
And so in our archaeological work, we do that. So we go beyond the burial ground. 1990, 91, we began to uncover some of the lost, stolen ancestral burial grounds. And so now the question is, where do we go from there?
Now, I know there's some examples of some of those burial grounds that have been getting unearthed. Like, what was that, New York?
Yeah, that was in New York.
Okay, okay. And that was on Wall Street, wasn't it?
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, down Manhattan.
Okay, okay. So what actually happened when they unearthed a burial ground of African slaves in the ground in the middle of Wall Street?
Well, those specimens was preserved.
Okay.
Reserved and put up, and matter of fact, they was in the tower when it fell. They got them out just in time.
Wow.
And so right now, Dr. Michael Blakely, who works with me,
Okay.
they have him in a secure place now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, I'm sorry. Before we had the caller, we were talking about the cattle ranches and ranching cattle. Yes, sir.
Let's talk about agriculture a little bit and,
Yes,
and
sir.
what it means to black people in our way of life. In the Boot Hill of Missouri, starting back around 1920, 29, many of the blacks came into the Boot Hill and they purchased land, large tracts of land. So up until around in the 60s, we had pretty much 100 black farmers, and all of them owned their land, large tracts, many sharecroppers. And so the sharecropper strike, 1932, I think it was, a lot of people began to migrate out of that and leave the farmland, and they began to migrate coming north. And so we lost a lot of people off the farms during that period in time. But down in Missouri, not only were they cotton growers, but they were cattle ranchers as well. Louisiana was the same thing. So when we talk about that guy we call the cowboy, it all started around 1765, coming out of Haiti into southern Louisiana. We know how they got there, and we know who bought them there. And so when you go down to Louisiana now, in southern Louisiana, you see a lot of blacks still have horses. But now they have what they call the trail rides. okay? And they go out on the horses for a weekend and do that kind of thing. But all the way up into Missouri, and we have brothers. The Cooper family is one that we are following right now. They've been farming for 150 years, and they still own all of the land that they have there. Many, the reason that they are not farming it personally, because Missouri, the Boot Hill of Missouri, educated their students. You had to come out of there and go to school. And so many of those blacks who were at Central, Hayti Central High. I think Hayti Central High is torn down now that we are trying to do some work there with in Hayti. But it graduated something like 18 PhDs out of that one little small school.
Wow.
Okay? In the state of Missouri.
Yes.
So many of those guys have gone on, their children and their grandchildren have went into other areas of professional work. And they don't farm anymore.
Well, what year was that the PhDs graduated?
Well, it started back in 1932.
Okay.
You know, then they went off to places like University of Missouri, Lincoln University in
Yes.
Jeff City, Missouri.
Yes.
And then eventually went over to University of Missouri.
Man, I'm sorry, Doc. This is so much good information, but we winding down to the last few minutes, and I know you got a lot of info. Before we get out of here, what would you like to impart? And also, what do you have to say to those that think history is not important and that the study of history may divide us and not bring us together?
Well, you know, first of all, history is economics. That is economics. And when you know history and you can put it into a package to sell, then you got tourism. And so that economic engine is beyond the burial ground, because the burial ground in our work becomes the central part of tourism. And so we are now building a tourism destination in Hayti, Missouri.
Yes.
And around Hayti, Missouri, you have many black towns that was developed out of that slavery movement, right?
Yes.
And so all the way up to Cairo, Illinois, Charleston, Missouri, places like that, little black towns all around there on the Mississippi basin.
Yes.
But it's economics. And so when you build a destination, people will come when you have rewritten the history from our perspective.
Yes.
Okay? So we hire historians, we hire scientists, we hire those people to help bring the true history from our perspective. And so, and that's what's happening today. So you can get on a tour, go to our sites, and pick up that history that way.
Yes. Yes. How do you think that may affect black people playing a part in writing history as opposed to just reading books that's written about them?
Well, I think, you know, one of the things that my colleagues and I have done since we left the conference in Washington, D.C. is to come up with a way of involving young students into the sciences. And so we have a archaeological program for young students in 5th grade all the way through 12th.
Wow.
And we also have undergrad students who will be coming working on those sites as well.
Yes. Yes.
So it's introducing them to the sciences, and we deal with all the STEM components of the sciences.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Well, man, that is that's a lot. Actually, we'll be dealing more with your travels and your exploits and research that you're dealing with at www.englewood.enterprisegallery.com. And you can check us out and get more information about Dr. Muhammad. You can like us on Facebook at Englewood Enterprise Gallery on Facebook. And feel free to come by and check us out at 1200 West 35th Street. That's 1200 West 35th Street at our new location, wonderful art gallery, and a lot of awesome things to partake in. Once again, I'm your host, Mr. Medina, and this is my wonderful guest, Dr. Jihad Muhammed, forensics anthropologist, archaeologist, and gentleman extraordinaire. Dr. Muhammad, I got 20 short seconds. Anything you want to drop on the people before they put us out the studio?
Well, I'm just happy to be home. I've been away for a long time, traveling
sir.
back and forth, and so I want the people to know that there is a need for what we do, and of course we have to import that with our generations
Yes.
coming after us, and so
Yes.
that's what we do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Well, that's about it. Thank you for joining us, and see you next week. Have a great day.